How many things do you use every day that you take for granted?
So many items touch your life in ways that you don't even realize.
Shoes,
Socks,
toaster ovens,
regular ovens,
easy bake ovens,
Roombas,
robots,
sex robots,
Gollum.
Dumbledore.
But there's one thing, perhaps literally the closest to us, that we never realize the history and culture behind.
We wear it every day, but nobody ever sees it. I am, of course, talking about underwear. Join us as we dive into the abyss of the history of underwear and how it influences our lives today.
It's tough to top an original, so we added to the sides instead. It's the cheesy gordita crunch you know and love, now completely new. The $5 double cheesy gordita crunch box, only at Taco Bell.
Every day, thousands of animals just like this are abused, abandoned, and even killed. And this cannot go on. Here at UNDIES, we are working to find safe homes for every single animal, and we need your support. Call the toll-free number now and save a heart and give a home. Thank you.
Excuse me, miss? Why would you wear that if it goes under your clothes? Why?
You're not you when you're hungry. Snickers satisfies.
We would like to start this new special with a brief history of the children's undergarment. The custom of swaddling, immobilizing newborn infants with linen wrappings over their diapers and shirts have been placed for centuries. That's correct. Babies in straitjackets. For their health.
You see, these people were under the assumption that if you did not put your child in a fucking straitjacket, they would end up lumpy. Yes, lumpy. And bent. Your baby is now misshapen because of your negligence. Good job.
That was the belief at the time. After a few months of restricted torture, these kids were put into slips.
Interesting enough, these slips ended up influencing women's gowns later on.
These dress-like garments were given to all children, regardless of gender. Yeah, go gender neutrality.
Eventually, male and female children would split their ways in terms of what they wore. Boys around the age of 4 began wearing skeleton suits. Happy Halloween! These fashionably racy outfits would hug tight on the boys' bodies so that you could really see their curves. How attractive.
Girls, on the other hand, were given skirts. That's it, for the rest of their life. They just got longer as they got taller. That's about it.
Well, that's boring.
Color coding when dealing with gender was very important and very uncertain for a time. It is now considered a standard protocol that boys usually wear blue and girls usually wear pink. However, for a brief period, colors were switched due to the association of blue with feminine goddesses in Greek mythology and red with male gods. Indecisiveness. What a shame.
The length of time that American children spend in diapers has doubled over the last 60 years, and diaper manufacturers are a big reason for this change.
These days, mothers leaving the hospital with their newborns are loaded up with free diapers, not realizing the hospitals usually get the diapers for free, but actually charge patients for them on medical bills. That is a scam. Disgusting.
In most cases, the diapers being handed out are the disposable variety, whose cost can add up for parents who end up shelling out more than $1,000 a year for them on average. Again, disgusting.
It used to be that American kids were potty trained and out of diapers by 18 months of age. This was the case in the 1950s. But by 2001, the average age of potty training rose to 35 months for girls and 39 months for boys. Some parents report that their children aren't potty trained until they are 3, 4, or even 5 years old.
The longer kids stay in diapers, the more monies like Procter and Gamble make off delayed potty training. Capitalism, am I right?
Eventually, as kids begin to mature and start making their own independent decisions, such as what type of underwear they would like to wear, through this, there are chains of underwear brands that thrive due to the impulse shopping of these garments that no one ever sees.
Regardless, this transition happens at some point, typically in the child's adolescent years, and from then on, they carry into adult life with their horrible taste in underwear. We have come full circle.
We'd like to thank you for tuning into this special news report. Enjoy your night, and remember,
Do not wear the same underwear for 2 days in a row. That shit smells.
Thank you. And now, here's Chloe with the weather.
Thank you, Catherine. Jumping right in, let's start with some ancient history. 5,000 years ago, the first sign of underwear was found on the body of Otzi the Iceman. We tried to contact this iconic figure for an interview, but unlike his fashionable goatskin loincloth, which was triangle-shaped and fastened at the hips, Otzi has not survived the 5 millennia. Now I'll direct you over to the ancient Egyptians, some of whom wore loincloths. Kudos to those who did, because they were way ahead of the trend. A little bit to the north, Romans also wore underwear. Both Roman ladies and gentlemen were partial to loincloths or shirts called sabulcurum. Women also wore a band of cloth or leather around their chest called a strophium. These ladies had never heard of bras, but that didn't stop them from participating in the underwear culture. All across Europe during the Middle Ages, men wore linen shorts called brays. Women were a bit behind in this fashion. Their only underwear was a long linen garment called a shift, which they wore under a dress. They didn't wear their version of linen shorts, which were called knickers, until the 19th century. Moving over to Italy. In the 19th century, there was the opera La Commedia dell'arte, which featured a character named Pantalone, from whom the word pants is derived. In America, Elizabeth Miller invented loose trousers to be worn by women as a part of the women's liberation movement. The idea was then popularized by Amelia Bloomer, and they became known as bloomers after her. As time has gone on, long underwear in general has been known as bloomers, so this stylish woman's legacy carries on. Meanwhile, in 1913, Clarice Crosby, born Mary Phelps Jacob, changed underwear forever by inventing the modern bra. She used 2 handkerchiefs joined by a ribbon, not the most comfortable, but the idea quickly took off, as we can still see today. Over time, all over the Western world, we have seen a trend of increasingly shorter underwear for men and women. Women's knickers went from being well below the knee in the 18th century to above the knee in the 1920s, and by the 40s and 50s, many women wore briefs. This underwear got smaller and smaller until the 90s, when thongs became popular. Men's underwear has also become smaller and less complex over the years, changing from full sets of undergarments to closer to what we know as underpants today, first seen by Y-fronts going on sale in the US in 1935, and then boxer shorts in the 1940s. That wraps up the underwear update. Back to you, Gareth.
Thank you, Chloe. Moving on, it is essential in any discussion of the history of underwear over the years to mention the one undergarment worn exclusively by women. I am, of course, talking about
Pads.
No.
Tampons.
No.
Chainmail.
What? Dude, I'm talking about bras.
Oh. Women don't wear chainmail under their clothes?
Anyway, as I was saying, the bra is the one undergarment worn exclusively by women. Well, almost exclusively. And it has come a bit under fire by feminists, leading to the question of whether it's a tool of practicality or one of oppression. But before we get into that question, let's first get into a brief history of the bra!
Women have been wearing something bra-like for basically as long as they've had boobs. In many early civilizations, there's some example of a bra-like article of clothing. The ancient Greeks wore wool bandeaus to bind the breasts to the body. In the Middle Ages, one wore breast bags, basically crude linen versions of the modern bra, but these worn almost entirely for pure practicality, just to keep the girls out of the way.
It wasn't until the Renaissance that upper undergarments became sexualized. This era saw the introduction of the corset, a tight-laced, stiff cage that was designed to push out the breasts and tighten the waist. And despite the pain involved in wearing them and the potential for really severe organ damage, women continued to wear tight-laced corsets well past the Victorian era. They were then replaced by other types of corsets and eventually by the first version of the modern bra, invented by Mary Phelps Jacobs in 1910. Her first version of it was made of several handkerchiefs stitched together. We don't have any pictures of what that would look like, so we made our own. Gareth, if you will.
Do I have to?
Yes.
Dude, this is literally a bunch of cloth napkins, safety pinned together. I can't fucking wear this.
As you can see, it couldn't have been the most comfortable thing, but it was certainly better than what women at the time were used to. Jacobs sold the patent, establishing the first modern bra. Sorry about that, Gareth.
Anyway, bras continued to develop throughout the 20th century, with padded cups and hooks being gradually added. In the 1960s, some things began to change.
This era saw the introduction of second-wave feminism and women's liberation, and women began to object to the patriarchal sexualization of their bodies. Not only did feminists start to burn their bras in the street, but even the trends of the bras began to swing back, introducing the no-bra look in the 1960s, and small breasts coming back into fashion.
Next came the idea of the bra truly becoming a part of fashion. With the creation of the company Victoria's Secret in the 1970s, its founder wanted to have a place where he could shop for lingerie for his wife. So began the popularization of fast fashion underwear. Today, women wear sexy underwear underneath their clothes even though it can't be seen. Why do you think that is?
I think it's sort of a monkey brain thing. You know, you peel the banana to get the fruit, you take off the clothes to see the sexy underwear, you know?
Then isn't it like a banana with two peels in a way? Because underneath the bra and the panties, there's
I guess? I think the question then is, who exactly is the sexy underwear for? You could say that it's just for women to feel good about themselves, but isn't there something inherently sexist in a man creating a company like Victoria's Secret? It's like he expects something of women, and buying lingerie for your wife unprompted is kind of like an ownership thing. After all, as Judith Butler says, to operate within the matrix of power is not the same as to replicate uncritically relations of domination. Just because times have changed and women have more rights, are we not still replicating previous conditions of misogyny by perpetuating the idea that women only do things for their husbands, and husbands can make women do those same things?
well, of course. Women are the property of their husbands.
Silly me, how could I forget? But in all seriousness, the evolution of women's underwear, the bra in particular, does reflect the role of women in society at these times, from the practicality of early cloth bandeaus to the liberating no-bra bras of the 60s to the fast fashion underwear of today.
And speaking of the fast fashion underwear of today, here's our in-field expert Phil, who can hopefully shed some light on some of the questions we've asked here today in this next segment coming up now.
Thanks, guys. Now I'm here with Undies Nuts Network, and we're here at Victoria's Secret in Willowbrook in Wayne, New Jersey. And we're here to find out and uncover some misnomers about Victoria's Secret. A lot of people buy Victoria's Secret underwear, and it seems very uncomfortable. And why? Well, we're here to find out. Let's go. Yeah, they said they want to let us film anything they were saying, but they did let us record our answers. So everything, all this information is true information, and it's not fake or made up.
When asked what it's like working here, she said it's wonderful and she's worked here for 6 years. And when I asked what kind of people come here, she said everyone comes here. People your age, people my age, everyone comes here. And when I asked her, do you think women buy sexy underwear for themselves or to please a partner? She said absolutely for themselves. People come in for panties, sometimes they go to the sports aisle for their lives. I feel like Victoria's Secret makes people come here for different reasons. And I asked if I see a lot of men shopping here. She said mostly for their significant others. A lot do, but they feel uncomfortable because they don't know what they're doing. I asked her, is the underwear sold here designed for all types of women, and do you sell them for the same size for plus women and women of all skin tones? And she said, I do. There are women with very large breasts. We can accommodate them. In store, not as much as online. I feel like we could do better. And my last question to her was, what made you want to work here? And she responded with, I needed the money because I have kids. I have daughters, they like this kind of thing.
You clap after that?
Yeah, I do. We're back on air.
Hello, welcome back to Undies Nuts. I am Gareth.
Hello, I am Katherine, and here is your latest breaking.
America's beloved H&M has recently been investigated for threats against its workers.
As H&M's largest provider, Bangladesh is the second leading apparel exporter behind China, but with the lowest wages in the world.
H&M's Bangladesh factories also have been in violation of child labor laws and for firing women for getting pregnant.
Despite signing the Accord on Fire and Building Safety in response to Rana Plaza's deadly collapse, many of H&M's Bangladesh supplier factories still pose a threat to workers.
Our sources tell us that these workers don't have any sufficient fire exits, nor keep up their facilities up to code.
Conventional cotton is a thirsty crop. Did you know that it takes about 360 gallons of water to grow enough cotton for just one pair of underwear?
Add in the herbicides and chemical fertilizers sprayed on each cotton ball, not to mention the water sources that they contaminate, and you may consider going commando.
Just in, some of our sources tell us that the apparel industry has access to 8,000 chemicals and uses them at will to turn raw materials into finished garments.
Unlike the US, many of the chemicals are banned in Europe.
In addition to small traces of cyanide, azo dyes that can release cancer-causing amines and heavy metals have been reported.
Accumulation of these chemicals can have negative effects on the liver, endocrine systems, and cause infertility problems.
In light of all of these facts, we as Americans and as people all around the world should really begin to reconsider our choices in fast fashion underwear. Is the human and environmental cost worth it, or would it be better to switch to more sustainable options regardless of the cost? That is up for you to decide.